Welcome to Kathy's Eclectic Garden. I'm Kathy and I garden in Zone 5B, 6A in Northwest Ohio. Today I'm going to show you how to build a harvest rack. We'll be right back. The harvest rack that I'm building is roughly 2 feet wide, 1 foot deep, and 3 feet tall. That being the shelves, those are the dimensions of the shelves. It'll be a little bit bigger with this frame on. This is the one side of the frame. And I'm going to show you how I built that by building the other side. Okay, in order to get the placement of my shelves, I wanted the bottom shelf to be 6 inches off the ground, and this is the bottom of the one leg. And I might want to also mention that the legs are 2x4s. So I measured up 6 inches. The shelves themselves are 2 3/4 inches tall, so I allowed 3 inches for the shelf. And then I wanted the top of one shelf to be 5 inches from the bottom of the next shelf. So I measured 5 inches. And then I just kept going 3 inches and 5 inches all the way up to the top of the shelf. After I get my lines marked, I'm ready to put my guides on. These are the guides for each of the shelves. I just had some lumber laying around this, but this just happens to be 1.5 inches by 3/4 inch. So that's about the size you need for a guide. Now I'm going to place this with the top of the guide underneath that line, because that's my 6-inch mark, and I said I wanted my bottom shelf 6 inches from the ground. So I've already pre-drilled the holes in this for the top piece, and after I get all my holes drilled and countersinked, I will go back and drill into the 2x4 so the screws go in easier. Now these little pieces right here, these are just about 2 inches long, I believe, 3 inches long. These are 1 foot. These are to help keep the shelves from flipping out. If you want to pull a shelf out to get some produce off of it, if you don't have a stop here, it could just flip out and all your produce would fall on the floor. So this will help keep your shelves from flipping out of the rack. So that's what these little blocks are for. And they go above where the rack's going to be. So the rack will be going right through here once you get this all put together. Okay, this is what the shelf looks like. And it will slide in like this. And it will be resting on this bottom rack. Now when you go to pull it out, I don't have these screwed in yet, but when you go to pull it out, when you're pulling it out like this, and say you want to stop it here, it could flip down. But this piece here is going to stop it from doing that. So that's why I'm putting those in there. After you get all these little holes drilled, you can see those are flat. The screws have kind of an angled piece on the head. If you don't countersink those holes, the head of the screw is going to stick up. So you can get a countersinking bit that will countersink those holes, but I don't have one, and I went to the hardware store and they were out of them. But the nice gentleman at the hardware store told me if I get a bit that's about the size of the head of the screw, and then just come in and just lightly do the top of this where that hole is, it acts like a countersink. Now when I screw that screw in, it will be level with that piece of wood and it won't stick out. So I have to do that to all of these holes that I've drilled. After I get all the holes pre-drilled, I go back and put all the screws in. Just like that. I got my other end piece finished, and now I'm going to put together the rest of the drawers. And this one, they're all the same size, and the sides are made from furring strips. And I've got all of the lumber and the dimensions in the description and how many pieces of each that you need if you decide you want to make one of these yourself. But I believe furring strips are all standard in width. These are 2 foot. We need 2 2-foot pieces and 2 1-foot pieces. And next I'm going to drill pilot holes in the 2 2-foot sections. Just like with the frame, I'm going to countersink these holes with a larger drill. Now I have to clamp these boards together so that I can screw them together. And I had to go out and buy this wood clamp. And it gets a little tricky. So you have to get all your pieces squared up. Okay, I think I've just about got this thing clamped together now. And make sure I got it straight. Now I'll go back and take my drill and finish drilling these holes in. So now I've got my screw, I've got my holes drilled, and I'll just go back and put the screws in. Then we'll do that all the way around, and then we'll be ready to put the hardware cloth on the bottom. Now the next thing you have to do is to put the bottom on the shelf, and I used 1/2-inch hardware cloth. It comes on a roll and you have to cut it to size. So I will measure to see where I'll have to cut these pointy things off. But I'll place it down here like so, and I see that I need to come to right here to get the width that I need. So I've got wire cutters, and you just have to snip it across. Like that. So I'll get this cut, and then we'll come back and show you how we put it on the bottom. Now once you get your hardware cloth cut to size, you're ready to put it on to the bottom of your frame. And I do this with a staple gun. And it's really hard for me to do that, but there you go. Now I always go back and tap it down, make sure it's in there real good. And you just do that all the way around until you've got it tacked in. Now this was an afterthought after I started putting these together, and I decided I needed a brace on the bottom of these trays because this hardware cloth is a little stretchy. You get something heavy on here, this is just put on with staples, and that would be, I would think, easy to pull out. So I just took one of my furring strips and cut it to size to fit across the back of this, and I pre-drilled my holes, which is already done. I'm getting ready to finish putting the screws in. This tray's all finished, so this is what it looks like on the inside. As you can see, that gives some support there to that hardware cloth. Okay, now I'm securing the top shelf to the frame. It's the only stationary shelf. The rest of them will be removable. I've already done the other side, and now I'm finishing it off. I've got the other end propped up with one of the removable trays. So I'm going to drill my pilot holes. And then I have to do the countersink them. I've got 2 drills, but my other drill I'm using as a screwdriver. So now I'm going to put my screws in. And then I will be putting some braces on the back to keep this stable. so it doesn't wiggle back and forth. And for the last step, I'm going to put a brace here to help stabilize this, like 6 inches from the bottom of the sides. That will make it even with the bottom shelf, and I'm just going to put a couple of screws in it. I'm drilling my starter holes. And I didn't bother countersinking these because it's going to be on the back. Nobody's going to see it. It's not going to hurt anything. And we'll get our holes drilled on this side. Get our screws in. And there we go. We're ready to get this set up and put some shelves in. So here's the finished product. I've got my 4 shelves. The top one is stationary. The other 3 pull out like this. And I've got my stop over on the other side to keep it from falling out like that. And I decided to put the stops in the back on the other side. That'll keep it from flipping on the back side. So that's it. It's not fancy by any stretch of the imagination. I definitely wouldn't make them and sell them because I'd have to put too much time into them, finessing them. I didn't do any sanding on any of the shelves to sand the edges. This is going to be mostly in my barn or my garage, sometimes in my basement. So nobody's going to see it but me, and it will serve the purpose that I designed it for, to ripen my tomatoes on, because I like to pick my tomatoes early and let them ripen inside. And I'm also going to use it to cure my onions. But this is my harvest rack. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a little something. I'm not a carpenter. I don't claim to be a carpenter. I just needed something that I could store my veggies on, and this is going to serve that purpose. I said earlier I'm going to put all the wood dimensions in the description in case you want to try to build one of these. And if you do, let me know that you're building one, and I'd like to see yours when you get it done. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.